Hi, my name is Christina Weekly, and today I will be presenting on Judy Chicago, the founding mother of feminist art. For this presentation, my thesis is that Judy Chicago's feminism is reflected in her work and was influential to feminist art. Her piece, The Dinner Party, was extremely influential and sparked numerous conversations and analyses through academia and the art world. Judy Chicago was born on July 20th, 1939 in Chicago, Illinois. She is known as an American feminist artist and art educator, and her main mediums of art are installation, painting, and sculpture work. Jane Gerhard in Feminist Studies 37 says Chicago's linkage of art and feminist politics secured her place as one of the leading figures of the emergent U.S. feminist art movement. Shown on the right is Rainbow Picket, 1965. It is one of several room-sized sculpture installations she created for her first solo gallery show in Los Angeles, January 1966. This exhibition was part of the foundational minimalist exhibition Primary Structures at the Jewish Museum, and the influential critic Clement Greenberg described it then as one of the best works in the exhibition. Judy Chicago's education and awards. Starting in 1962, Chicago had received a Bachelor of Art, and then in 1964 she received a Master's of Art from the University of California, Los Angeles. In 2022, she received an honorary doctorate in fine arts from California State University, Fresno. Throughout the years, she's also received multiple honorary doctorates from multiple universities, from fine arts to art history. She's also received many awards and grants throughout the years. To name a few, in 1973, she received the Outstanding Woman of the Year Award. In 1997, she received the Getty Grant Program Award. In 2004, she received the Visionary Woman Award. And in 2012, she received the Lifetime Achievement Award. Judy Chicago also started the feminist art program. In the 1970s, Chicago was the founder of the first feminist art program in the United States. This art program was started at California State University, Fresno, and sparked feminist art and art education. It redefined the creative process, and the program sought to address inequities in the arts from an institutional position, and was also focused on moving away from the male-dominated art scene. Jane Gerhard quoted, she announced in one of her classes that none of the men talk and only the women talk. Many of the men booed her because they found her style abrasive. The feminist art program is to help women restructure their personalities to be more consistent with their desires to be artists and to help them build their art making out of their experiences as women. One of her most influential pieces, The Dinner Party, consists of 39 ceramic plates, each dedicated to famous female figures of the past. Each plate resembled a vagina and was decorated with motifs and symbols that related to the corresponding female figure. There are 999 more women's names inscribed in gold on the tile below the table. This project made her a torchbearer for the feminist movement, and it also marks her evolution as an artist. Previously, she went from stiff and precise to fluid and sensual. Stiff and precise could reference her Rainbow Picket work, which was very rectangular and sharp, compared to the fluid and sensual connotation of the vagina. This is one of the place settings from The Dinner Party. Purple Atmosphere is another one of her pieces, and it was an effort to feminize the atmosphere at a time when the Southern California art scene was almost entirely male-dominated. It was part of a group of works titled Atmospheres, and while some were meant to soften the landscape, some were also recreating early women-centered activities like the worship of goddess figures or tending to kindled fire. This piece is titled Red Flag, and it appears in Critical Menstrual Studies, and it's an excellent example of how Chicago is an artist who challenges the visual silencing of menstruation. It's described as the first menstrual artwork, which is a myth because it was so popular, but it can also be viewed as reclamation of phallic imagery penetration. Chicago later wrote that the red flag had in part been designed to test male reaction to overt female subject matter. And then in a later interview, she added that men were often especially interested in her menstrual work, which she tied to the lack of education about menstruation in school. Critical menstrual studies is concerned with critiquing feelings, industries, and taboos connected to menstruation, notably shame, gendered scripts in advertising, and the dominance of corporations and pharmaceutical companies. Another one of her pieces is Early Birth, which is one part of her Birth Project series. This project was created as a response to the absence of birth iconography in Western art, and it's a series of birth and creation projects. It was executed using 150 needle workers around the country, which Chicago personally observed and exhibited in more than 100 venues. Personally, I find Judy Chicago's work to be very visceral. Her early work felt very printed almost. It was monotoned. It was colorful, but it was also sharp and unfeeling, like there was no real emotion behind it, and she was trying to create something that was right and perfect rather than something that meant something to her and others around her. I especially feel and agree that the dinner party was extremely influential and definitely marked a change in her career, where she went from a student creating projects to an artist creating art. I feel like that change is something that many artists go through, though not all. And I believe it's something that, while she was definitely interested in art her entire life, and it's something that shapes her as a person and an artist, going to school and creating projects all the time can lock you into this idea of what you need to create, what is popular, what is marketable, and what other people want to see and buy. I believe her dinner party installation, especially since it was seen by so many people, is an iconic piece of work of hers because of how much it draws attention to important female figures in history, people that, while we know about them, they're a side note in the textbook or someone who's only mentioned briefly in a conversation or something as an example to talk about a man in their life. And I really like how she used the dinner party to bring these women to the forefront. I also think that her works, such as Purple Atmosphere, which are very large, and other atmosphere ones, especially the ones that have fireworks that get loud and bright and colorful, are very important to who she is as an artist. She's very much an artist who wants to get people's attention and bring their attention to political problems such as women's inequality in the art world and other women's rights issues that have happened throughout the years. And I believe that Purple Atmosphere is a very good example of how she went big, she went loud, and then it was gone. And I think that's a wonderful representation of how we often get big and loud about issues that we are concerned and passionate about, but then it also gets drowned out by everything else that's going on. And I think her atmosphere works are great representations of that. Moving on to Red Flag, I really like how she was, I say the word brave, but it might not quite work, in her decision to use an image of a woman taking a tampon out of her vagina, especially one with blood on it, because at the time there was a lot of shame centered around periods and menstruation. And it's very important for people to feel comfortable and be aware of menstruation and that almost every woman goes through it. And it's something that just is. There is no this or that. It just is. It's something that happens. It needs to be dealt with. It doesn't need to be hidden. And it doesn't really need to be shouted about, but if it's currently being hidden, then yes, it does. I also find that critical menstrual studies, something I'd never heard of, that's something that's very interesting and it would be cool to take a class on. I also really respect her Earth Birth project because using 150 needle workers around the country is an insane endeavor. Like, to me, that is such a big project, and it's insane how much detail goes into her projects. And that concludes my presentation on Judy Chicago. Here are my article sources as well as my artwork sources.